Welcome to the Stridyl podcast, where entertainment meets opportunity.
Okay, well, here we are. It's Glyn Schofield here, hosting and speaking to Sam Clipperton. We're here at Royal Randwick Racecourse and just above the Theatre of the Horse with a beautiful backdrop of winks behind us with a full grandstand, which hopefully we've got on Saturday, Sam. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Scully. Yeah, no, good to be here. And looking forward to a big day on Saturday, Everest Day. Hopefully it is a atmosphere like in the picture behind us, and very exciting.
Yeah, hopefully the weather stays good to us. Last week it wasn't so nice. Had a bit of a walk on the track. It's looking a little bit rough out wide where the rail was, but there's a new pad inside that, so if the weather gods are kind to us, it gives everyone a chance.
Well, I had an enforced holiday on the weekend, so I had my feet up with the Ugg boots on and eating nice meals, so I was comfortable by the fire and
it's always
staying
nice
dry.
It's always nice when you're given a holiday and the meeting's called off, because you know
exactly.
You haven't lost too much.
Exactly. There was a couple of meetings called off last week that included in my suspension, so I was pretty happy about that. But no, like we said, hopefully the weather can be kind to us for the weekend and we have a good day.
Do you reckon the stewards look into that when they've given you a 4 or 5 day holiday and you've only served 2 of them because there's been 2 meetings that are washed out? Do you think they think, we'll square up with you next time?
Geez, I hope they don't. They might do.
No, I don't know how they think, but
I think if luck falls your way and a couple of meetings are called off, well, they'll give it to you.
Yeah, you're the beneficiary.
Yeah,
aren't you?
exactly.
So back to the Everest. You've ridden in it once or twice before?
I've had a couple of rides. Yeah, I rode Santa Ana Lane in it 2 years ago, and I rode Libertini last year.
That's right. Anthony wasn't happy with your gallop.
No, I did too much on it, or too little on it, or something. But
we always cop a lot of flack, jockeys, after the race, but it's a bit strange to be given
my
first before the race.
My first pay up. Well, you get a bit of a pay after track work sometimes, but it was my first pay after a track work gallop. So
yeah, well,
there's a first for everything.
Yeah, well, of course there is.
Especially in this game.
This is racing. Anything can happen.
Exactly.
So you'll have a nice book of rides on Saturday, I presume. I want to ask you a little bit about, of course, mostly about the race, the Everest, but we're not going to forget you got other rides on the day, and you do the same sort of preparation. I'm tipping for the smaller races as you would for the main one, even though the main one's everyone's focus, but you can't let the other people down, or the connections and trainers down, of the other horses you're riding. So tell us a little bit about your week going into a big race. Well, and before we get into the big race, what is the difference between the Everest and other Group 1 races or big races that you've ridden in?
I think, because
it's a new race.
It's a new race. It's gone from an idea to something very big in a short amount of time. And now we're talking about the Everest alongside races like the Melbourne Cup and the Cox Plate and the Slipper. It's basically, I'd say, in my opinion, it's considered a major.
Yes, the 5th major, isn't it?
Yeah, and it has to be. And look, it doesn't have that history behind it. It hasn't been around for 100 years or more, but it's the whole idea, the concept, the slot holders, the prize money. It's groundbreaking, and it's making history in itself in a very short time. And it's the world's richest turf race, and to be a part of it is it's a real buzz, and it's such a big build up. Like, horses are getting selected for this race 8, 9, 10 months out, even a year out, and the build up's on from when you're selected. And then as a jockey's point of view, if you're lucky enough to have an association with a horse that's good enough to get selected, or you get a late call up, it doesn't matter whether you're involved 12 months out or 2 weeks out. It's still got that same buzz. But as you say, I think it's important to also that we don't have the one ride on the day. We've got 7 or 8 others that are just as important to those connections, and at the end of the day, just important to us. Whether it's a a maiden at Goulburn or an Everest, we still love to win and we still want to win. That's what we're employed to do. So
that's right. We're competitors. We go out there and we're all socially we're pretty good mates. But
yeah,
once you get out there on that green turf, you know, there's no holds barred. We're all in it for ourselves.
out on the track, we can have great banter in the jockeys room, go out for a couple of beers on a Sunday, but you know, you'd be shutting a gate on me pretty quick, and I'd be shutting a gate on you pretty quick.
We're competitive buggers, and
Yeah,
we all
exactly.
want to win. So, you know, we've got a set of rules to sort of like guide us by,
That's right.
and we try and stick to those as best we can. Well, they're in the back of our mind most of the time, but generally speaking, it's all fair and honest, and we're all out there to try and do the best for our connections. So you spoke about different types of horses that you have connections with, or you get the late call up. Last year, you got the late call up with Libertini.
Yep.
We've spoken briefly about that, and that sort of, there was a little bit of pressure even to begin with before you even got on the horse's back, which was the track gallop that Anthony wasn't happy with. But that's just semantic from a jockey's perspective. That's just background noise. You don't really focus on that. But now with Marzu, you've had a long history with him over about 12 months.
Yeah. I first rode him.
Tell us about your first interactions with the horse. What he was like to ride, because I believe he was a bit of a.
He was a handful. He was a colt, and he would go to a muck lather before the race, and from a jockey's point of view, wasn't very enjoyable to ride at all, really. And I'm sure for the people handling him at the stables and for Peter and Paul training him, he was frustrating. Obviously, seeing how much ability the horse has, yet is this horse going to reach his full potential?
Can you feel that potential in a horse like a colt, that a highly strung colt, like he was? Can you feel that ability when you ride him and you think this horse is not giving his best?
For sure.
His head's everywhere.
For sure. He would just want to do everything 100 miles an hour, even walking around the enclosure. Before a race, he would run his race before the race just in sweat.
And now that he's a gelding, he doesn't do that.
Oh, he's a completely different horse, and
of course his form's turned around.
He's shot through the grades very quickly, and he won 5 in a row last preparation. And to be honest, 4 of those 5.
And you were on him for everyone.
I rode him the whole prep. Yep, and 4 of those 5 races were tailor made for him. He was beautifully placed. He was beautifully prepared, and he won as he liked.
Was he beautifully ridden?
And I must say, it was pretty well ridden. Yes,
of course he was. He won.
but his acid test was the Doomben 10,000, and that was where he had to get in the ring and really, you know, he had to bring his A game.
That was his highest level he'd run at.
That was it was a Group 1 Doomben 10,000, weight for age, 3-year-old. History sort of 3-year-olds in the race don't have a great record in it. They've got to go against the older hard-head horses, as you know, and he won. So I think that was also, I think a couple of days before he got picked for the Everest for the next 2 years. And I think it was the Thursday before the Doomben 10,000, Marzu got picked, and I went home and I said to my wife, I said, "Oh, Marzu's been picked for the Everest, so that's good. Your pressure's off." And she sort of looked at me like, "Okay, if you want to look at it that way, that's good, Sam. You know, I'll let you go." A couple of hours passed. A couple of hours passed, and I realised that, oh, hang on, he's got to win now. Like, he's just been picked for an Everest. He can't go there and run third. So, and that's all the pressures we deal with as jockeys and all sportsmen and the trainers preparing these horses. So it was a bit of added pressure going into that race, but he won, and I think he proved that day that he was a worthy Everest contender.
Talking about the pressure that we face when we ride, do you get? This is how I've approached big races. When I'm riding a good horse in a good race, I don't feel pressure. I get more confident
and excitement, because
when you're riding a good horse in a good race, you know what the horse can do for you. When you're riding an unknown horse you haven't ridden before, that's a little bit of a mystery. But when you're riding like a horse like you've got association with Marzu, I'm tipping that when you went to go and ride him in the 10,000, you weren't worried about all the race, 2 races down the track.
No, and again,
you
I
must
had
have gone in there with a lot of confidence, knowing what your horse could do for you.
I did, and I had a couple of other rides on the day, and they both won before Marzu. And so the Doom and 10,000 came, and like you say, when you have an association with a horse, you know what they're capable of. As soon as you swing your leg over them in the mounting yard, you just feel this sense of I'm unbeatable. Whether you're unbeatable or not, well, no horse is unbeatable other than a Winx or a Black Caviar. But you have to have that mindset.
Yeah.
Horses are such sensitive animals. Whether they can feel your nervous energy, I'm not sure. But
it's a funny thing, isn't it, when you say that you get on a horse and you know the horse, even if you don't know the horse. As jocks, you get that feel from a horse straight away. They give you a good vibe.
Yeah, whether they're just
and they're on it.
Johnny on the spot.
You can tell straight away, can't you?
Yeah, for sure. And also
tell us what that feels like when you're riding a horse like Marzu. Let's say you get on him on Saturday, and he's got 1 or 2 quirks that you look for that give you that positive sign.
Yeah, I think it just as that whole confidence. You're just saying in your head, right? We're on today. We're here to play, and you know it's a good feeling. Even going to the barriers, you feel a horse build up underneath you. They're harnessing that energy, and it's just, I think it builds your confidence from the time you hop onto them, from the time you get to the barriers. You're just in this zone where nothing else around you can. It's a hard feeling to explain, but I've heard top athletes explain this feeling that when they're in the zone, time seems to slow down.
Everything goes slow.
And it's just, you know, whatever happenings around you, everything's just in slow-mo. And things just fall into place, and you're making split-second decisions like you've got all the time in the world to think about it. And I think when you're in that zone, it's hard to recall then when you're in that... it's hard to recall from when you're in that zone because you can't actually remember it. Yeah. You were so incoherent.
Trying to relay that to someone after the race.
It's like just being in complete instinct.
Says, what went through your mind with the 400 when you were boxed in and you had nowhere to go?
Well, when we talk to the media, we talk, or you know, recapping a race with trainers or owners, we're telling them what happened, but also it all happens so fast, and it's also with experience and instinct.
Yeah.
You're just riding on instinct and feel, and you only get that. You talk about when you would ride a good horse in a big race. I think that's experience. You'd get confident. You'd get, you know, you couldn't wait. I think that comes with experience, and also with this whole zoning in and being incoherent in what you're doing and just completely riding off instinct. That comes with instinct. That comes with experience as well.
Yeah.
You know, if you're a young fella riding a Marzu or a Boban or a great horse in a big race, you're going to be nervous. But the more times you've been in that situation, the more natural it comes.
Yeah. So when you say experience, so when you start off without experience, let's go back to when you started off as a kid, and you started off at Randwick and you were with Ronnie Quinton.
Yep.
And you were naturally talented. Obviously all the boys could see that you were naturally talented from day one. And Ronnie put his faith in you and nurtured you. And then you went off and you obviously had really good performance on the track. And then you went off to Hong Kong.
Yep.
Tell me, do you think when you went off to Hong Kong, because when you came back, like Hong Kong wasn't kind to you really, was it?
It was a hard place.
It was a hard learn, wasn't it?
It's a hard place for a 22-year-old.
So that was my question. So do you think, I've ridden in Hong Kong, and I went there when I was in my mid-30s, and I was there 4 or 5 years, and I found that when I came back from there, I was a more polished rider because of the caliber of jockeys you ride against and the nature of their racing. But with you, it seemed like it was a hindrance to your trajectory as a rider, that you came back and you stubbed your toe for a long time.
I did, yeah.
Tell us about that period of time, because there were a lot of us that were a bit worried about, you know, where you were going at that point, because you disappeared. You went surfing for 6 months.
Yeah.
And here you are a couple of years later. You've regathered. You've regrouped. You've obviously had a plan to get to where you wanted to be, and now you're here. Give us a little bit of the story on that journey from the hard times in. We don't have to talk about the hard times in Hong Kong because everyone does it.
Yeah, the adjustment back in Australia was. I was worried too, to be honest. I came back and I'd had an okay time. I was there for 2.5 years. I think I rode close to 70 winners in the time I was there, and the last 6 months I was there wasn't great. And I came back, and I guess again through a bit of perhaps immaturity and maybe inexperience in dealing with tough times, I sort of thought perhaps maybe I was just going to slide straight back into Sydney. And that's not the case. This place, this town, Sydney, is just as competitive as Hong Kong, if not more.
It's probably more competitive.
And it's gotten more competitive, I think, in the last 5 years. So I think perhaps from my point, it was a little bit of immaturity, thinking I was going to slot straight back in. Perhaps didn't apply myself like I should have. Perhaps didn't work hard enough like I should have. Also, looking back, I was probably burnt out. I was tired. I'd been going from 15 years old straight out of school, worked my backside off, rode internationally for 2.5 years, and then come back, and I was a bit stale, and I wasn't applying myself, and that was showing in my riding. It was showing in my career. It was showing in my life, to be honest. I hit a pretty low point, and that's when my wife and I and my family had the discussion to just take time off from riding. And that was a gamble because, again, you take time off from riding and you don't know how you're going to come back, and you don't know if you're going to be welcome back. And as a competitor, you want to be here. But it was a gamble that I had to take for my mental health and my well-being, to maybe if I take this time off, okay, it's going to be good for me, but I might not get back to where I dreamed of.
You take a step back and you see it from a distance. So you're not in the mix, and your mind's not jumbled up with trying to do everything all at once and nothing's happening. So do you reckon losing weight on a continual basis has some sort of bearing on that as well? Because you're not the lightest bloke in the world, but you manage your weight really, really well.
Yeah, it has to. And again, with age and experience, I've learnt to manage my weight far better than what I used to, say, when I was 21 or 22. I started off very small, as you know, myself and your son Chad, we were tiny, and now Chad's one of the tallest fellas in the room, and I'm not far behind him. And I think that just comes down with maturity and experience, learning,
So what is your program now then? Like on the weekend, you might be riding light, and you got the biggest race of the year to contend with as well. What would be your program, and how would you approach your dietary requirements and your exercise going into? Because of course you're riding Wednesday, Saturday.
So the routine doesn't change during the week.
But you might have a light ride on. Like I would personally not want to ride too light on a big race day, because I want to be really focused on what the job at hand. And I wanted to go in there feeling like confident and fresh, and not having to worry about too many other things. But like you mentioned, you might be riding quite light on Saturday.
Yep.
So that for you, because you're riding light on the Wednesday before, I presume you are. Yep. You'll just carry that
well,
through.
I think my
What will you do? So if you ride light Wednesday, 54, will you eat Wednesday night, Thursday, start losing it again Friday?
For sure. My program started Monday morning. Monday morning is my program, where after a Saturday race day, we have a lovely fill-up day, Sunday, cheat day, whatever, do whatever you want. Squeeze everything in till about 9, 10 o'clock Sunday night, and then Monday morning, bang, the program starts. And that's just... I don't do a lot of running, but I do a lot of like long distance walking. I'll try and walk 10 Ks a day. And I know for my body that works. It might not work for yourself or other fellas, but I know that works for me. I also like to eat clean, just lots of vegetables, steamed fish, chicken. I can't miss a meal. I'm not a jockey that can waste. I have to
I'm
eat.
not the same. I like food, but unfortunately I don't eat all the steamed stuff.
Don't worry, I'm a sweet tooth. I can pack it away just like the best of them. But like, I have to have a meal. I have to have something in my belly, and if I'm going to walk 10 Ks, well, I'm gonna eat. But I also enjoy having a little sweat nearly every night, whether that's for 20 minutes, just to keep the body ticking over, rotating. So I had a sweat last night for half an hour, and you
When
kind of.
you say a sweat, explain to
You-
who's listening what a
yeah,
sweat is.
a sweat.
Because
So
some people might be getting a little bit of, like some beads on your brow.
yeah, no, we'll fill up the bath in the bathroom, chuck a heater on in there, plug the doors, keep the steam in, which makes the bathroom nice and mouldy too, which our wives blow up about.
Yeah.
And jump in the bath at about 39, 40 degrees, and your body opens up. So people think, oh, okay, it must be great. I'm going to go jump in the bath and lose 2 kilos. It's losing weight. Well, it's not. You're taking fluid out.
Yeah.
But also with our bodies, we know them so well. We can jump in the bath, and in 20 minutes I can say, well, I know exactly what weight I'm going to lose in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a nice meal, go to bed happy, and I'll do that every day. And then your weight gradually comes down through the week. So it's not ideal riding as light as a 54 on a Wednesday than you say on a Saturday, because Saturday you've got another 3 days.
You've got 5
a
days.
lot longer to prepare. But for example,
your
we'll
weight,
say if I'm riding 54 tomorrow, I'll still let my body blow up a couple of kilos to that 56 range, and then slowly bring it down again Thursday, Friday. You're not going to go Wednesday night, go up and go to the pub and have a ribeye on the bone and 10 schooners and have a big fill up, although it'd be nice. But you keep it in check, keep it in range, you refuel yourself, and that's my way of staying fresh. And I find if I manage my weight properly and I'm riding light, I actually feel like I can ride at my best when I'm light if I've prepared properly.
It's funny. Do you find when you don't have a light ride and you get to the races, sort of catch weight, you feel sluggish?
You feel lethargic.
God, you feel too awful.
Yeah, you feel heavy. You feel slow.
slow,
not as flexible.
So it's quite strange. We did in Victoria, they make you do a course, a health course, to be able to use the spas in the jockeys room, and the health professionals that were given this lecture on how to manage your body and what your body needs and doesn't need was actually quite contrary to what we do as riders.
Yeah.
Like what we know makes us feel sharp and alert.
Yeah.
Is what they'd say you shouldn't do.
Yeah, well, like for example, when Marzu won the Doom in 10,000, my lightest ride was 57. I had 4 rides at 57. I thought, how good. But I just kept in the back of my mind that exact feeling.
Yeah.
You turn up to the races 56. You think you feel airborne. You're full of energy, but you just
off it on you.
Yeah, you're just not quite
100%.
there. So I made sure that I got to the races. I had a good. I screwed down the diet. I had a good couple of sweats approaching it in the bath or the steam room, and I got to the races 55, and that was 2 kilos under what I was riding. And a lot of fellas probably thought, well, why are you doing that? But for myself, that's what I know what works,
I'm
and that's how I can feel my best.
Yeah, I'm the same. Even though I say that I don't ride too light, I don't try not to, but at least I want to be comfortable as well.
Yeah, and you'll probably be 1.5 kilos under what you need to ride, or a kilo.
And you want to ride it in a decent sized saddle too.
Correct, you have decent gear on the horse, and also be able to have a drink throughout the day. That makes a big difference. If you've got again, like now the weather's getting warmer, I can get to the races, say for example 54.2, and still be sipping away if my 54 is in race 5, knowing that you're going to sweat it out. But you're only going to sweat it out riding
if you put it in.
Yeah. So it's all about the individual.
And that comes from, as you mentioned earlier, a bit of experience,
knowing what works,
and you know everybody's work.
Yeah.
Everyone's body works a little bit differently.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know what works for you. I'm sure you can wear a ring or a watch and say, well, I'm a bit heavy at the moment. And you know straight away by your jewellery.
If it's going to slide off, you're right on track. If it's not going anywhere, you've got a bit of work to do.
Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. So that's the health aspect and the dietary aspect of it. Now, going into a big race like the Everest, you're riding the horse, you know what's coming up, you know what's at stake, but you're riding a program of Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, maybe Tuesdays as well, in the weeks leading up. You don't want to get suspended riding,
the week's approaching.
And then you miss your big one. So, how do you approach those rides? Because as you've mentioned, every ride you have is the most important one.
Yeah.
This is the way I approach it. Every ride you have, if I'm riding in race 1 on Everest Day, that's my most important ride.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's the one I'm riding at the moment.
For sure.
You know, the Everest will take care of itself when I get there.
Yeah.
So when you're riding a week or two before, you still got to give the same amount of commitment to each ride, but at the same time, you don't want to overstep the boundaries. How did you? Because we used to watch. I'm sure he'll agree with us. When Huey was riding Winx, everyone would say, "Well, he just goes missing, the week before he rides Winx because he doesn't want to get suspended. He stays out the way." How would you approach that sort of thing? Because I used to find that the more you tried to stay out of trouble, you got in it.
Exactly right. I'm part of my preparation is I write little notes on my form guide, whether it's just little reminders of the 1%ers that I need to do on the day, and I'll just whether it's corners or corner work or flowing from the barriers, just little things.
So you write that in your race book, so that just remind yourself before you go out.
Just have a look at it before every race. If I think I need to work on that this week, that's just what I write. And it's funny, before or that sort of time period where if you get suspended, you're going to miss out on an Everest or a Golden Slipper or a Melbourne Cup. I just write on the top of my corner of a paper, no suspensions. And I'll just look at it, and it's just like you're going out and giving 110% commitment, but you're just reminding yourself of that fine line.
That's right, yeah.
You're reminding yourself of that line of what the rules are, and you're reminding yourself of that line of what it takes for you to get hauled into the steward's room and cop a 6-meeting suspension. Yes, those rules are there to be pushed at certain times, and we do push them at certain times when necessary, but it's a good reminder to yourself to just know where that line is.
Yeah.
And whether any of us will be thinking of that line in the Everest, I'm sure we will, because at the end of the day, the Melbourne Cup's the Tuesday after, the Golden Eagle's coming up.
I find it a strange... I've heard this many times from stewards, and I find this a really strange mindset from them. And they say, and I say to them, so if I get a 5-meeting suspension, why is it necessary that I serve it over the biggest races of the carnival? Why can't I serve the suspension at a different time?
Yeah, it's
a suspension is still a suspension. And their words are, it's a deterrent so that you don't do it deliberately. Well, we don't do anything. We don't knock each over deliberately. And if you do, you obviously sue me on with the elbow the other day.
Yeah.
It's going to cop a couple of months. It's not a couple of meetings. So I find that sort of mindset a little bit strange from the stewards, but I understand they've obviously got to keep racing neat and tidy and safe and all that.
At the end of the day, it's sport. It's competitive. So, while it's easy for me to sit here and say to you, it's a reminder of that fine line. Yeah, out there in the heat of the moment, when, again, those split-second decisions need to be made, and you're in that zone, sometimes it's instinct, and you pull up after a race, straight away, you think, oh, shit.
Did I need to do that?
Yeah, did I? Oh, that was close. What were you doing, Sam?
And you look and you turn around, you look for the bloke that you've...
Yeah, you look for him waiting for a spray, or you say, were you all right when I crossed? And you know that you've done it, but it's that instinct, that incoherent riding of your mind out of the way.
I suppose that's why it's called careless riding.
Correct.
So
correct.
A lot of people ask me, why'd you get suspended again? Well, it's like you're driving down a highway, packed highway, and you want to change lanes, and you have a look, you see a gap, and you if the car behind you just touches the brake,
that's a check.
That's a careless riding. That's a suspension.
Yeah, exactly.
That's that's basically what it's like for us.
Yeah, and
so we run the fine lines and the margins there.
We do, and again, it's all comes down to that. At the end of the day, we're paid to we are put on the horse from the trainers and the connections to do what's best to win the race, and that's what we go out and do. Like I said, whether it's at Nowra or Royal Randwick or Flemington on a Saturday.
Do you have a particular favourite track, riding style? Do you like horses that do certain things? What are you most comfortable with, or do you think you've now adapted and developed to be able to ride all different types and styles?
I'd love to think, whether people agree or not, I'd love to think that I've adapted to all riding styles. But I think my favourite is being just in the 1-1
in the stalking spot.
controlling.
Yeah.
You're the bus driver. You control everything that's behind you, and you time whether you're going good enough. You time when you take others into that race.
It's a pity sometimes when you ride one that well.
Yeah. It's a
and
pity
it-
when
and
you
it's
ride
not-
one that
and
well and they
it's
don't
not
go
going well
anywhere.
enough to
the
do
wheels
anything
start
for you.
spinning and you think, well, geez. But I think every jockey will agree that's the plumb position to be in. But it cannot also be the plumb position to be in as well. But I think that's what makes a good jockey, being able to ride from second last or being able to rate one from the front.
So you've gone from like adversity to being one of the most sought after blokes in the room at the moment.
Well, I've been.
And you actually really, I mean, you've got a really polished all round riding portfolio at the moment. I mean, there's not many chinks. If as your competitor, there's not many chinks in your armour. I couldn't get down to the start and whisper something in your ear and make you flinch. I remember.
I reckon you'd be able to get me going, no doubt about it.
I remember I got Jimmy Innes one day. He was riding Minari, and it was $1.40 or $1.50, and I think I was on a fancy horse in the race, and got down to the barriers, and he was pale.
Yeah.
His eyes were this big, and I said to him, "Hey son, have you ever been beaten on a $1.50 shot
Oh,
before?"
shit.
And he nearly fell off the horse.
Yeah.
He won on it, you know.
Yeah, of course.
Little things like that, you know, little bit of gamesmanship comes into it here and there, but
Yeah.
comes.
I think, again, I keep harping back to it, but that comes down to experience. If 19, 20, 21-year-old, even up until 3 years ago, I probably would have thought, if you said that to me, I would have thought,
You would have thought about it.
Hang on, have I? But again, you start to know your place in the room. You start to, I guess, you're always accepted, but you start to earn your respect from your peers, especially the accomplished, or all peers, but the accomplished peers that you look up to and you idolize, and you know you strive to be them and to be where they're at, and you start to sense that bit of acceptance. Yeah, they're always gonna. They're not going to give an inch. They're not going to do you any favours. But I think you start sensing a bit of acceptance, a bit of respect back for what you can do. And that, for myself, speaking of myself, it gives you confidence. You know,
once you've earned the respect of the senior boys and the senior boys in the room, when you're a younger jockey.
Yeah.
I think as a senior riders, you're going to be approaching that pretty soon, and maybe when you're in your mid-30s, which is a few years away. But you can see straight away when someone's confident and they know what they're doing, and you can
for sure.
You can see straight away,
and whether they have that good ability
too.
For sure, there's plenty of good apprentices coming, and you can see which ones sort of, even their demeanour in the room, which whether they walk around the room confidently or they ride well, but they're a little bit.
Do you give them a little
shy
little bit of advice on the side?
For sure, if they, if
do they want to hear it, or do they take it on board?
I think the kids that are coming through at the moment all seem like they've got good heads on their shoulders.
I've always found you were one of them as well. That it's not necessarily taking advice; it's going to ask for it.
Asking for advice is a good sign, because it just goes to show that they're not too cocky to come and ask for help.
Yeah.
And we sometimes let our frustrations known to them, and then in half an hour's time, you go up to them and say, "Now listen, I didn't mean it. I'm just trying to help you." And then you sit them down and talk them through. You give them a tap on the back, shake their hand, and then
talking about the kids. They got a great mentor now in Corey Brown.
They really do.
He was one of the he was. You spoke about being in the 1-1. He was the 1-1.
Yeah, and he was
king,
a jockey that I've
He was allergic to the rail. He was always one off.
Yeah, always in the right spot.
Always in the right spot.
Yeah,
he was just.
He's a jockey that myself has tried to adapt his similar style in riding, and I think the apprentices are extremely lucky to have someone like Corey helping them.
Yeah. Well, you were extremely lucky. You had Ronnie Quinton, who's coached. How many? You had Bowman.
Yeah, you had Huey Bowman. He had lots of and Andrew Atkins. And that's one thing that Ron did for myself and all of his apprentices is he threw us in the deep end. He put us on every horse he had. So whether that was in a Doncaster or he had 4 runners at Canterbury on a Wednesday, I'd be riding them, or Andrew would be riding them, and that's where that experience thing comes in riding, particularly in big races. I was lucky enough that when I was apprentice there, Ron only had 20 horses, but I'd say 7 of them were at one point stakes horses, and they were going around in these big races. And
it gives you as a young kid, it gives you, young kids are full of confidence anyway.
Yeah, but
it gives you that extra confidence that your boss is backing you too.
For sure. And sometimes I was the only in the form guide, I was the only jockey with an A next to their name on these big days, and I was the only apprentice riding in these big races, and Chad had that with Hayes in Melbourne.
That's right, yeah. We started off with Payne as well.
With Payne, and then he went to Melbourne. We were both getting these opportunities that were probably a bit rich for us at the time, perhaps, but it gave us that taste of the elite level. Yeah. And I feel like that was a very important thing for myself and my grounding to be riding in big races now on good chances. I was lucky to get those opportunities. And I remember I rode a horse called Monton in the Doncaster. He would have been 50-1, but it was still a ride in the Doncaster. And I think,
how old were you then?
I would have been 18. Yeah. I still had a fair while to go in my apprenticeship. And I only had the one ride on the day because it was Doncaster Day. And so all these Group 1s were lined up, and the Doncaster was the second last race, and Ron said to me, all right, well, you can come to the stables, do the afternoon shift. Make sure you pack your race bag and suit, because you'll have to walk down from the stables to the race day.
Oh, that's great grounding, isn't it?
It is, and I was like, oh, okay. So I remember I was covered in wood shavings and dust and mucked out about 15
the boss was
boxes.
Just letting you know,
yeah, exactly.
reminding you that you were still an apprentice and you still had to do your work.
And then when it was time to go, I looked at the clock, went in the tack room, no shower or anything, just chucked the suit on, did up the tie, dragged my bag down the hill and rolled into the jockey's room for Doncaster Day. And again, riding against the likes of, yourself, Corey Brown, Huey Bowman, Damien Oliver was there, all these top fellas that were at the top of their games.
And you know what, Sammy, I'll tell you, sorry to interrupt you there. That bit of experience you've just told me now, that will stand you in great stead wherever you go in life, because you've got a work ethic. You mentioned earlier that you maybe thought your work ethic wasn't good enough when you came back from Hong Kong. But that grounding that Ronnie gave you there, that's obviously the reason why you've been able to climb back on or up the ladder, get back on the horse, so to speak, and be where you are riding in this magnificent race on Saturday.
And I, as I said before, I think Sydney's gotten more competitive each year, and if you take your foot off the gas, it's, you're going to get left behind.
Someone famous once said, they asked him, I think it was Gary Player, and they said, oh, Gary, you're a very lucky golfer. He said, it's amazing, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
And that applies to everything, I reckon.
No, it's a motto that I live by. You can have, another one is hard work will beat talent when talent doesn't work. And that's something that I really, you can be talented, but you've got to work at it, and that's something that, like I said, I worked very hard as an apprentice, got to Hong Kong, and then it's something that my work ethic slipped for a year. But also I think having a family, I'm a young father now.
Tell us about your family. You married to Morgan, and you've got a young daughter, Addie?
Well, Morgan, she's been through a lot with myself and my career, and she came to Hong Kong with me, and we've experienced the highs and experienced the lows together. But I think her being so supportive of me, having that time off in my career, I was going off surfing. I was wanting to grow my hair long. I wasn't exactly someone to be.
You needed a reset.
I did. I needed a reset, and she was, so solid through that, and she gave me a good kick up the backside every now and then, which was needed. But she's, really pushed me to get back on track, and then, becoming a young father, there's no better kick up the backside than becoming.
It makes you hungry, doesn't it?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Everything you do is for them, and every father knows that feeling. And I think it's been an amazing, and it's amazing when you have a bad day at work, bad day at the races, or not necessarily bad, but things don't go exactly how you've planned.
Yeah.
You come in and they're there she is on her belly on the floor, and
she's completely unaware of what's happened.
She has
Yeah.
no idea.
day-
And she
your
couldn't
day's
care
reset.
less whether you won
Yeah.
the Everest or run last. She's going to smile at you.
That's
And
right.
I think, that's been fantastic for myself. But another thing that I want to touch on, which is probably a little bit to do with Corey Brown and the apprentices, I think when you become from an apprentice to a senior jockey, it can be a very lonely place. You go from all this help and guidance, and seems like you have an abundance of advice.
To you're on your own.
To then nothing, and you still have. You can always turn to your old boss. Like Ron was very good to me in those 4 years out of my apprenticeship, but not everyone's that lucky. And it can be it just seems like you can tread water. And I think as jockeys, and compared to other sportsmen or sportswomen, they have a whole team around them, whether it's a tennis player, a golfer.
Yeah, they'll have their coach,
their fitness coach, their
mental coach, their
exactly. And that's something I think
their dietitian, they're this, they're that. Yeah,
they have all that, and I think that's something that I was a bit lost with until I found a fella called James Winks, who I've only been working with for about 2 years now. And James Winks himself was a very good jockey and rode.
And James, so just to James is your jockey.
He's
mentor.
like my mentor, my coach. And
so you throw things off him, and he gives you.
I'll speak to him 3 times a day. Whether it's I'm feeling a bit flat in the car, I'll just ring. How you going? And he goes, "What's up?" I said, "Not much. Just ring him, say good day, and we'll just talk about how
So what will you do after so you'll phone him before races, after
I phone
races?
him before the races and after the races
so if
every
you had
day.
a bad day.
Bad day, we go through every ride.
Okay, so
decompress.
He'll analyse your race and think what you did wrong.
Correct. He'll tell me what I did wrong, what I did right. I can compress, throw everything at the day at him, and then bang, hang up the phone, walk into my family, and
it's gone.
That's gone. Exactly. And I think that's been a massive thing to help me get better, and also learn when the day's over. Don't go to bed on it. Don't wake up on it, and he's been fantastic, even for myself improving my riding, like the 1%ers that I talked about, the corners, and just little reminders that sometimes you don't have those people reminding you about, little things that I can constantly improve on. And he's been fantastic for me over the last 2 years, for sure.
Oh, that's good. Well, I didn't know that, but that's.
But I just think I think
it's obviously in your performance in that period of time.
Yeah, I think it's funny
have you done any
that
sort of stats to show, like draw a line in the sand, say right, that's when he started.
Yeah,
that's where I was, and that's where I am now.
I just think it's funny how people don't necessarily understand that we go out and perform in races like the Everest and the Melbourne Cup, but not necessarily a lot of the work that we put into it. The preparation is off our own backs. It's our own prep, and I think in perhaps the future of the sport, and particularly jockeys, that could be something that like James Winks and Corey Brown, these fellas could be trailblazers.
It makes it really difficult. I hear what you're saying, and I understand the value of that. Having a seasoned head to bounce ideas off, and then you clear your head and you go home and it's all gone, and you put it in a box and you lock it away because you don't need it today.
Yeah.
But how does it make it difficult now? There are these rules these stewards have put in now that you're not allowed to take any advice, or you can't ride according to any advice other than the trainer or the owner gives you. So like we all get speed maps, race forms, all that sort of stuff from various different outlets and people. But the one that comes from Racing New South Wales is basically their Bible. That's what they say. That's how the race should be run. Yeah. Sometimes I look at that and think, well, I'm not riding like that.
No, it's the same. That's just not going to happen. Yeah. I think that comes. The answer to that is, for me, anyways, is the relationship with the trainer, and then communication. So
because it's a trainer jockey relationship when you're worth your salt. It's not like you walk into the enclosure and the trainer or the jockey says, or the owner says, you jump and lead at all costs. You might turn around and say, well, hang on a minute, there's 3 other leaders and we're drawn wide, we may not get there. Do you just want to me to continue to push. So you then give your own bit of insight into it.
Yeah. I again, that it's communication with them. So okay, yep, noted. Let's do that. For me, I'll just make sure that it's pointed out that there are 3 other speed horses in there, and maybe necessarily we might have to do too much work to lead. So therefore, Plan B.
Sometimes you've got to take the lead as well.
Yeah, and again, that's why you put good jockeys on, because at the end of the day, you've got to show your initiative, and sometimes you have to ride against instructions and go to Plan B or C or D, and when the gates open and the horse,
everything's out the window. If something
correct,
if you get slow away and you're a leader, well,
that's right.
That's your race gone.
And I think that's the difference between great jockeys and good jockeys. In look at someone like Damien Oliver, for example. I certainly wouldn't be giving that bloke instructions. Like I'd let him tell me. If I was a trainer, I'd let him, come out and tell me what he's going to do.
As a jockey, you want to know, if you haven't ridden a horse before, you'd like to be informed of
some information,
what the horse likes and dislikes are.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also riding track work is a big thing. You get to know horses very well at track work. Also, technology we have, or everyone has, with replays and form.
Yeah, you can pretty much look it up anyway.
Correct. If you've never ridden a horse, you can know exactly what its traits are and what it likes by watching 3 videos. And
most people haven't ridden a horse, but they can certainly tell us how to ride him.
Well, there's a lot of grandstand jockeys out there.
How do you deal with the social media aspect of because you've probably been born into the social media era?
Yeah, I'm probably one of the rare few doesn't have a Twitter account. No, I think the best way to deal with it is stay off it.
Yeah.
Sometimes if I'm feeling like a laugh, I'll chuck my name into my wife's Twitter account. But she's a bit of a Twitter police, my wife. She goes around and reports everyone.
Everyone loves the praise, but we don't really like the criticism.
No, we don't. Criticism's hard, but I think in terms of those nasty,
especially when it's unjust.
Yeah, those nasty social media comments that are done by those brave keyboard warriors. I think it's water off a duck's back, and if you don't like it, don't read it. And I don't have Twitter.
I remember Chris Waller saying to me years ago when it first came into being the Twitter aspect of everything, and he said to me, I say I don't read it. He said, but I do. It's
there, and I think it's like,
and then you're sort of, it's like a moth drawn to a flame.
Yeah, correct.
To a flame. You know you shouldn't go there, but you just
sometimes you can't help yourself to have a look. Yeah. But yeah, I'm one of the rare few that don't have a Twitter account for that reason. It doesn't interest me anyway, but I just don't see the point in reading. I can cop criticism, but I think people when
it's justified.
Correct.
None of us are perfect,
but when it's those personal attacks, some of it's awful.
Yeah.
And I just pay no attention to it because I don't read it.
Yeah, well, that's good. And also, you're a bit of in the room. You're a bit of a funny guy. You certainly make.
We like a bit of banter.
In the room is a bit of. Sometimes it's a bit serious, but you were one of the boys that can make us all laugh.
I like to.
We've got Robbie Dolan who can sing.
Yeah, Robbie Dolan can sing.
And we got Sam Clipperton that can impersonate just about anybody.
Yeah, I won't do any impersonations
I'm not going to ask you to impersonate, but he's pretty good at it.
But no,
a few of you trainers out there that give him a spray, he copies you off really well.
Oh dear, but no, I like to. It's good to keep the room lighthearted. I think there's a time and place. Everest Day there might not be much banter, but we'll throw a couple of little. Yeah. We'll throw a couple of lines out and see who bites.
Well, Everest Day is going to be great. Wish you all the best of luck.
You too, Scully.
Thanks very much.
You got a good ride in the race.
Yeah, I got a late call, which is great.
Yep.
I'll walk in there with my A-frame and make sure that no one knocks me
over.
Teach
us all a lesson, I reckon.
Oh, look, it's great. I've still got that hunger to do it all, and it's great that Godolphin have given me that crack. So
yeah, for sure.
Safe riding, competitive riding, and let's both have a great day.
I'll see you there Saturday.
We're good.
Perfect.